A major outsourcing company just shut down its entire India operation, and the reason this matters, the reason everyone should be paying attention, is that it's not because India lost its edge. It's because artificial intelligence got too good. Opendoors, one of India's largest business process outsourcing firms, recently made the decision to exit the Indian market completely. That's not a company in trouble. That's a company saying the entire model of hiring humans in India to do work for companies abroad doesn't make economic sense anymore. And it's happening right now. For the past 30 years, India's outsourcing industry became the foundation of the entire country's tech boom. Companies like Infosys, TCS, and Wipro grew into global giants by hiring thousands of English-speaking professionals to do customer service, back-office work, accounting, data entry, and software development for Western companies at a fraction of the cost. It was a beautiful deal for both sides. Indian workers got stable, well-paying jobs that lifted them out of poverty. Western companies cut their costs dramatically, but that entire system was always built on one assumption, that it was cheaper to hire a person than to build a machine. And in 2026, that assumption just collapsed completely. So who is Opendoors exactly? It's not a household name outside India, but for over 20 years, it's been one of the continent's largest business process outsourcing companies, and we are talking a major player. Opendoors specializes in back-office operations, which is basically the invisible work that keeps a company running. They handle customer service, data entry, accounting reconciliation, invoice processing, and hundreds of other routine tasks that somebody has to do, but nobody really wants to do themselves. If you've ever called customer support for a major corporation and spoken to someone with an Indian accent, there's a solid chance you were talking to an Opendoors employee or someone from a direct competitor. The company employed tens of thousands of people across India, concentrated in tech hubs like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Mumbai, and it was incredibly profitable. Opendoors could charge American and European companies roughly 30% of what it would cost to hire equivalent staff domestically, while Indian workers were earning 10 times what they'd make in other local industries. It was stable, predictable, and it worked for decades. But then, the economics of artificial intelligence reached a critical threshold. Opendoors leadership realized something uncomfortable. Their entire business model was now competing against machines that don't need salaries, don't get tired, don't call in sick, and make fewer mistakes than people do. Here's where it gets interesting. The replacement doesn't happen with one big piece of technology. It happens with a toolkit. Large language models like Claude and GPT can now handle customer service interactions at a level that's indistinguishable from a human agent. Robotic process automation, or RPA, can watch what a human does on a computer, filling out forms, copying data from one system to another, processing invoices, and replicate it automatically, faster and more accurately than any person ever could. Then there's optical character recognition, which extracts data from documents and images, replacing thousands of data entry jobs. These tools aren't magical, they're not sentient, but they are reliable, they work 24/7, and they cost a company a fraction of what it costs to hire even a low-wage overseas worker. The math is brutal. A company might pay $50,000 a year for an experienced outsourcing worker in India. The same work can now be done by a combination of AI tools costing maybe $5,000 annually, with zero benefits, zero training costs, and zero management overhead. Scale that across an entire back-office operation, which might employ hundreds or thousands of people, and you're looking at savings in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year. It's not that AI is slightly better. It's that AI has become dramatically cheaper and more reliable. That's the real threat. Let's be concrete about what this looks like in practice. A typical customer service call center job used to involve fielding calls from customers, troubleshooting their problems, and logging the interactions in a database. Today, a language model can handle 90% of those interactions via chat. The remaining 10% that need a human, they get escalated to someone who now manages AI interactions instead of doing basic support themselves. That's fewer jobs. Higher pay for the survivors, but a massive net loss in total employment. Data entry used to be a huge employment category in India. A person would spend 8 hours a day transcribing information from one system to another or extracting data from documents. RPA tools can now do that same work in minutes, working continuously without breaks or errors. Accounting and invoice processing. AI can read an invoice, extract the relevant fields, code it properly, and file it faster than a human could do a fraction of the work. The jobs that do remain are being pushed up the value chain. Instead of processing invoices, you're now managing the AI systems that process invoices. Instead of basic customer support, you're handling complex escalations that a machine genuinely cannot resolve. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. There aren't enough of those higher-level jobs to absorb all the people displaced from the routine work. This isn't the first time technology has destroyed entire job categories. During the Industrial Revolution, factory automation wiped out hand-weaving jobs. Early computers displaced clerical workers. The internet created whole new categories of work, but it also eliminated countless jobs in printing, typesetting, and customer interactions. Each time, there was a period of genuine economic pain while people retrained and markets adapted. But this time feels different in one crucial way: the pace. Previous technological changes unfolded over decades. You could see them coming. People had time to plan, to retrain, to find new industries. The outsourcing wave itself is a good example. It took about 2 decades to fully reshape global labor markets. But AI is different. The change from human workers to automated systems is happening in months, not years. A company like Opendoors can shut down its entire Indian operation not because of a gradual loss of competitiveness, but because the technology matured to the point where it became obviously cheaper overnight. And because AI is a general-purpose technology, it can automate almost any cognitive task. The disruption is broader than anything we've seen before. We're not talking about one industry or one skill set. We are talking about the entire category of routine cognitive work becoming potentially obsolete. That's something the global economy has never had to process this quickly. Let's talk about the real human impact here. India's outsourcing industry didn't just generate jobs, it generated wealth, education, and economic confidence. Millions of young Indians built careers around the promise that English plus technical skills equals a stable middle-class job. That promise is evaporating. The Indian government faces a genuine crisis. The outsourcing industry contributes significantly to foreign exchange earnings, and it's been a major driver of internal migration to tech cities like Bangalore. If that sector contracts rapidly, you're looking at unemployment, housing crises in tech hubs, and reduced tax revenue for the government. But the global implications might be even bigger. For the past 30 years, the outsourcing model meant that routine work could be offshored to cheaper markets, which kept labor costs down globally. That kept prices low for consumers in wealthy countries. But if AI can do that work for cheaper than any human labor market can offer, then the entire arbitrage disappears. Companies don't need India. They don't need the Philippines. They don't need anywhere. The work just gets automated. That sounds good for Western consumers in the short term, lower prices, but it also means massive disruption across every global labor market simultaneously. You're not shifting jobs from one country to another. You're eliminating entire categories of employment globally. So what's the solution? First, let's be honest. There's no magic fix that keeps all the jobs. Technology always destroys old jobs while creating new ones, and this is no different. But the speed matters and preparation matters. For Indian workers, the answer is brutal but clear. You can't compete on cost anymore, so you compete on value. The workers and companies that survive this transition are moving away from routine back-office work toward higher-value services. Technical consulting, software development, data science, strategic advisory work that AI can't easily automate. Companies like Infosys and TCS are already doing this. They're not competing on who can do data entry cheapest. They're competing on who can build better software, who understands AI integration, who can advise clients on digital transformation. That requires continuous retraining and education. For companies globally, the lesson is clear too. If you're still running massive back-office operations with human workers doing routine cognitive tasks, you've got maybe 2 years before your business model becomes obviously uneconomical. Better to start the AI integration now, while you still have resources and time to manage the transition. for governments. This is a policy challenge that nobody has really figured out yet. How do you manage the transition for millions of displaced workers? How do you retrain people fast enough? Do you need new safety nets? Do you need education subsidies? These are the real questions that 2026 is forcing us to answer. Opendoors shutting down its India operations isn't just a business story. It's a signal. It's evidence that we've crossed a threshold where artificial intelligence has become cost-effective enough to replace human labor at scale, even in markets where labor is incredibly cheap. And if AI can outcompete workers in India at their own wage, it can outcompete workers anywhere. The outsourcing industry worked for 30 years because of a wage gap, the gap between what workers in wealthy countries earned and what workers in India earned. But artificial intelligence doesn't care about wage gaps. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't demand healthcare or retirement benefits. It just works. That's the future we are entering, a world where the competitive advantage isn't where you're located or how cheap your labor is. It's whether your work involves routine cognitive tasks that machines can learn, or whether it involves creativity, judgment, and human connection that machines still can't replicate. For workers, that means the bar for employment just got much higher. For companies, it means the opportunity to slash costs is real, but the social and political consequences might be enormous. And for policymakers, it means we need to figure out how to manage economic disruption at a scale and speed we've never seen before. This is just the beginning. Subscribe to stay on top of what's coming next, because trust me, there's a lot more disruption ahead.